Sullivan's architectural career spanned the decades just before and just after the turn of the 20th century. That period saw a transition from old traditional architecture to the birth of modern architecture. Sullivan was inventing a new aesthetic for the modern age. He famously coined the term "form follows function," a mantra for modern architects. I'm Michael Knorr with Architecture Minute. This episode looks at Sullivan's life and career, a story of triumph ending in tragedy. Sullivan produced his most significant buildings during his partnership with Dankmar Adler in Chicago. By most accounts, Sullivan was the creative energy, while Adler was more of an engineer who also had the social skills to attract clients. Initially, they built a reputation with big theater projects. Their most important theater is still a working performance hall, the 1889 Auditorium Theater in Chicago. This mixed-use project included retail space and an office tower. The Auditorium Theater is also known for its perfect acoustics and its celebration of the recently invented electric light. Adler and Sullivan also became the go-to firm for urban office buildings. The modern skyscraper had just become possible with the implementation of steel-framed structures and the Otis safety elevator. Other architects struggled with the design of tall buildings, attempting to apply old aesthetics to new forms. The high-rise office buildings that emerged from Sullivan's creative genius were unlike the others. Sullivan reveled in the newly possible heights of the modern office building. Ornamentation was also important to him, but it was not used to disguise the skyscraper form, but enrich it. It is worth spending a brief moment to appreciate Sullivan's love of ornament. It is often classified as Art Nouveau because of its curvilinear motifs. However, Sullivan did not think of himself as part of that movement. His ornamentation was a meditation on nature that embellished his buildings. It was never the main focus, as was common in European Art Nouveau architecture. In 1893, Sullivan was invited to design the transportation building for the World Columbian Exposition in Chicago. Other buildings for the World Fair were almost entirely neoclassical, all painted white. The fair was even nicknamed the White City. Sullivan's transportation building was an exception. It was original and inventive, and it was definitely not neoclassical. In that sense, it was modern. And it was the only exhibition building that employed color. Unfortunately, the World Fair marked the beginning of a declining career for Sullivan. The type of work he was known for suddenly went out of favor. A classical revival took hold that was to last for decades. Sullivan blamed the World Fair. In the new century, Sullivan was on his own. Big commissions disappeared. No more theaters, no more prominent high-rises, no more Adler to handle the practical side of things. What little work came his way was mostly small-town bank buildings. But what lovely buildings they were, like little jewel boxes. They seemed to deliberately rebel against the standard conception of a bank as something protected by Doric columns and Greek pediments. All of them were in small Midwestern towns where the pretensions of classical design seemed unimportant, but straightforward artistic originality was appreciated. But this was meager work for Sullivan. Without money, without clients, without the practical Adler, Sullivan ended his career in a small office in the tower of his 1889 Auditorium building. Occasionally, Frank Lloyd Wright would quietly send him money to live on. But for the most part, he was alone and forgotten. However, his legacy as a pioneer of modern architecture is not forgotten.